Serious. What are some of the most common dark realities people choose to live in denial about? Please like and subscribe to support this channel. That our memories are subjective, full of errors and patches in order to maintain a balance in our understanding of events. Some memories are even false, and some memories are so different from other people present at the same events that actions, reactions and outcomes could be entirely opposite from each other. Humans assume that memories are correct all of the time, however they are prone to errors and even change over time. Almost all sexual and physical child abuse occurs in families. Grandpa is much more like to rape his granddaughters and grandsons than the weird stranger down the street. But Grandpa pays the bills, gives out inheritances, covers medical and pish bills. No one is going to come after him, or Uncle Bill, or Cousin George, or Brother Bob, or Daddy or Aunt Kim, or Cousin Susan or Mama. The least likely person in a family of abusers are the grandmothers, and they are simply too tired. There could be kidnapping victims suffering from extreme abuse right down the road from you and you'd never know. I work in daycare. There's a lady I used to work with who discovered something like this. She said she went to babysit for a neighbor who she didn't know had a baby. Was told not to go into the baby's room. Did anyway. And discovered an abused child, who had apparently been with this lady for years. Good things can happen to bad people. They can live the best of lives and sleep soundly at night. They could live their entire lives and die without ever being held responsible for anything they've done. Millions of horrible people have lived and died, and no one will ever know of the horrors they've been a part of. Meanwhile, horrible things can happen to good people. In the grand scheme of things, there is no universal morality or justice. Most people don't get what they deserve, except in movies. That none of this really matters, and none of it's asterisk for us, but it's all we have and we don't know why. The universe is vast. Not infinite, but incomprehensibly vast. Literally, we are not equipped to perceive the vastness of it all. In turn, we are not equipped to understand how small we are. Not just as individuals, but as a species. As a world. And we don't really have any idea why any of it is. We have ideas on where it came from, typically, variations of, first nothing, then something, itself an unsettling concept when you try to really wrap your head around it. Because we cannot really perceive nothing, either, let alone something from nothing. But we don't know why, and some belief systems actively discourage even trying to understand why. So here we are, each of us a collection of cells given some sort of hive mind programming that creates consciousness, but still driven towards nothing more than our immediate needs, desires and, if we're lucky, maybe frivolous interests. And all of it with no real goal greater than maintaining our collection of cells long enough to spawn new collections of cells. Any goals we find beyond that are our own, invented and imposed. And the universe does not care. A lot of us can't really see that, either, but in the end, none of this is for us. Even adhering to some divine authority or purpose doesn't help, because that path is literally built to be more questions than answers, and to discourage either, in service to a goal we are told we cannot understand. We are not as important as we like to think we are. Problem is, we're not really equipped to perceive that, either. So we just make up reasons for it all, fight tooth and nail to hold on to whatever we have and whatever we believe in. We just keep going, and we don't know why. Old age and the many hardships that come with it. Most people won't have enough money for retirement, and the inevitable health problems that will come, especially since most of us don't live healthy lives now. Also just our very short lifespans in general. Spending most of our lives working, very few of us will actually live our lives to its fullest, and so many of us will have a large number of regrets from not doing things we wanted to do when we were younger. I'm so busy I don't think about it a lot, but sometimes while falling asleep it's like I get a preview of a feeling of being old and lying on my deathbed and realizing my whole life was for nothing. I try not to think about it because the feeling is paralyzing, but maybe thinking about it more will propel me to go after my goals and what makes me truly happy. This is not gonna be a fun one. The world we live in is a rarity in history. A time of peace and prosperity like this only comes when one world power is dominant over all others. i.e., the Pax Romana, Pax Mongolica, Pax Britannia. We are currently living in the age of the Pax Americana, the American peace. As much as many people would deny it due to personal or national bias, America has made the world a much more peaceful place since the Second World War. But with America beginning to lose its global hegemony, pulling out of the Middle East and Europe, the rise of China and the Russian revival, it's likely that we are going to go back to pre-World War norms of war being much more common. We are never going to achieve world peace. We as humans are inherently warlike, quarrelsome, ambitious, righteous, etc. It's what makes us human. You can't change that. The world will burn asunder and a new age will be born from the ashes of the old. History rhymes more often than it repeats, and we are about to hit some eerily similar notes in the coming decades. The psychological effects of childhood abuse. So many people will say, I had X done to me and I turned out fine, but most of the traumas from this aren't apparently obvious unless someone snaps and becomes a statistic. Even then, the role that the abuse had may not even be brought to attention. Worse still, the abuse just becomes normalized and passed down from generation to generation, and no one is the wiser unless a child winds up dead or hospitalized. Any comfort you have today is probably at the cost of slave labor, child labor, dead bodies outsourced to other countries. Every corporation will choose saving 5 cents on the cost price even if it means a larger frequency of dead bodies in another country. Be it raw materials for electronics, manufacturing new clothes, or even fucking packaging for a packet of chips, it's all killing more people. I hope we reach a point where we can ethically source materials, but even the definition of ethical is shady in third world countries. Mental health issues are not cute, funny, or quirky. Being called a psycho is no compliment. Depressions aren't just a phase. Schizophrenia is not just hearing weird noise sometimes. Anxiety and panic attacks are not just 5 seconds of a flip out and everything is fine again. Mental health issues are real and not to be taken lightly. It's not just a phase. If you need help, please reach out to someone, talk to them. Let them help you. There's not just that one way out. You can and will have good days again. That life is very, very bad in 90% of the world, and that if you're from a developed country, e.g. US, CA, European Union, you're already very, very far ahead of 90% of the world in terms of life comfort, healthcare, opportunities, etc. I'm from a poor, very unsafe country. When I see someone complaining on Reddit that the crime rates in my city are skyrocketing, I always take a look at the statistics, and the murder rate of that city is, like, 32 times lower than the city I live in. The world sucks, and you're very lucky if you're on the small part of the world that sucks less. Well, not that many people know about it, I guess, but the TTS. TTS, which means Trinity Teen Solutions, is a therapeutic place in Clark, Wyoming, US, where troubled girls go there to leave everything that has mentally damaged them and bloom mentally, spiritually, whatever that shit is. In reality, it's just a large ranch where girls are supposed to do hard labor as assignments, and at first they're forced to sign documents that say they're gonna be exposed to cruel labor and censorship. Whenever they can call their parents, since they send them there, the phone calls are three-way phone calls. It's the girl, the guard with them, and the parents. Whenever the girls would try to tell their parents, the guards would hang up on the phone and punish the respective girl. This happened for many years and it's still a thing today. In 2023, women and a plaintiff filed a class action. I'm not really sure what happened next, but it's still going. It's an absolute nightmare, honestly. This is their site. Animal agriculture is extremely cruel and is a living hell on earth for tens of billions of sentient beings who are killed every year for meat. Additionally, it is one of the most environmentally destructive industries on the planet on almost every metric: greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, water pollution, air pollution, and species extinctions both on land and in the oceans. But most people choose to look the other way because they care more about taste, pleasure, and convenience. Cops don't prevent crimes, they solve very few of them and, successfully, prosecute even fewer. We just keep giving them more and more money to protect and serve less and less, which they instead use buy extravagant toys, lobby, and spread misinformation. When their utter inefficacy becomes grievous harm, e.g. lynching, we, not they, pay to make their victims or survivors whole. And they often get an extended paid vacation throughout the process. Yet most people enable this because they want to believe they will be the exception, and that the cops will provide meaningful aid even though the data simply doesn't bear that out. Given that the planet produces enough food to feed every person and we intentionally let vast quantities of it rot, every single person who starves to death is allowed to for someone's profit. Slavery still exists and everyone is complicit in it. Your cell phone includes minerals mined by slaves. Chocolate is grown by slaves. Diamonds are mined by slaves. Fish is collected by slaves. Clothes are made by slaves. You cannot avoid it. That child sex abuse isn't really about secret cabals of wealthy perverts. It's about your wicked Uncle Ernie. That sex trafficking isn't about $20,000 closets on some website. It's about pawning off your child for a few hits of meth. It's about ignoring what the boyfriend is doing because you have no other place for you and kids to live. And here's the real kicker affecting so many. What your older peer did to you in elementary school wasn't experimentation, it was sexual assault that changed the trajectory of your entire life. If you ever get arrested in suspicion of something, lawyer. We love to think they are looking for the person who did a crime, but for some it's just a case to close. They are not your friend. There are too many innocent people in prison for shit they didn't do. In reality, even if you didn't do something you're accused of, you could spend years in jail fighting it. Court is not fair. Law is not fair. Cacao is an extremely inhumane trade. Big corporations like Nestle essentially control certain African governments to get dirt-cheap cacao supply. These governments in turn are part of slave labor practices to ensure prices stay cheap. If you eat chocolate from any well-known company, you're essentially part of it. Fair trade cacao companies are a fantastic alternative. Sure, they are slightly more expensive, but now you're giving farmers a living wage. Barely, Nestle in general is one of the most evil corporations out there. Anywhere they go, including small towns in the US, they destroy and essentially pillage natural resources. One of the biggest ones that I just cannot figure out is how people keep leaving their children in the care of Catholic priests. Like, wouldn't that be a deal breaker for you from a religious point of view if the ordained holy people were raping children? I know it's not every priest, but it's endemic enough, and there's been enough efforts to cover up and protect it that I just cannot see the logic of risking my child anywhere near that organization of predators. North American culture is extremely fixated on aging and how to avoid aging. People like to blame the obvious physical results of aging, like less mobility and getting wrinkles, as the reasons they dread growing older. No one wants to talk about how there isn't a lot of support for the elderly, culturally or financially. Families can't afford proper care for older family members, or sometimes it's just the family rarely visiting an elderly family member that may be living alone. Getting old is a drag. Yeah. But getting old and then having to worry your family could view you as a burden, that's a tough pill to swallow. Alien life. Most people say it exists or it doesn't. But neither side can ever bring up that one trump card that definitively proves their point. But maybe we're looking at it the wrong way. Maybe we're searching for life only the life out there is hiding. But we're extremely new to the search for interstellar life. Maybe it's like the scuba diver and the reef. We enter space only for everything to hide. Except we're new to the environment, so why would they hide? Maybe they're not hiding from us but from something bigger that we have yet to gain awareness of. I've always been fascinated by the possibility of extraterrestrial life, but the deeper I go the more I find that we most likely aren't alone, and maybe not searching is the better idea. There's no such thing as morality, ethics or righteousness in the global stage or in realpolitik. When one country invades another, there's no idea of justification or proper reasoning. There's no moral reason for neighboring countries to prevent or assist it besides real interests. Millions will die, and millions will be killed just to appease the grand theater of geographical politics, and if you live in the West, or any country that has had any degree of stability and military development, your nation is probably complicit in the ruthless system, and if you live anywhere else, it just means it's more likely that your country has then been used as one of the chess pieces in the global puppet shows played out by those global powers, including the lives and deaths of your countless countrymen. All for the economic and political interests of an elite that decide the fate that's most idyllic for their sense of prosperity within their own interests. That there is a reason why sociopaths and pedophiles are found amongst the people in power, and it's because our society and capitalism breed success out of lack of humanity. People get to successful positions because they have the ability to turn off their empathy and make hard decisions, and it's no surprise that this kind of person would turn out to commit atrocities or choose not to end global hunger. In the 1950s, they did an experiment which placed a rat in a water-filled bucket it couldn't climb out of. After 15 minutes, the rat stopped swimming and drowned. The next time, the experimenter rescued the rat when it stopped swimming and dried it off. The rat was then placed back in the bucket. It continued to swim for 60 hours. Hopium is a powerful drug that keeps many existing in pain and suffering for the slightest chance that things can get better. The common phrase, "things can only get better," is objectively false. In the end we're all subjected to entropy. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Many people live in denial about the people their family and friends really are. My husband came from a well-known Christian family in our area. He was homeschooled and his mother wrote a book on Christianity and raising children properly. He was quiet and known as a nice, gentle man who all my nieces and nephews loved. He worked in retail management positions and was respected amongst his coworkers. Shortly after our 6th wedding anniversary, I found child pornography on my husband's tablet and turned him into police. I got a protective order and cooperated fully with the police. The amount of people who were outraged that I would just abandon my vows was insane. His whole family sided with him and harassed me to change my story. The police have a video of him staring into a camera and hiding it in the bathroom, then luring in a child to use the bathroom. My story didn't even matter. The evidence was clear-cut. People wrote dozens of letters to the judge about what a good boy he was 35. His parents talked about how he was a man of God. We went to church once during our marriage, for a wedding. After he went to prison, his family pushed me about not allowing him to continue a relationship with our child. His sister asked me how I expected to co-parent when I wouldn't even drop the protective order. Spoiler. There will be no co-parenting. They acted like I was crazy. But the thing is, this is how their family acts with each other. He has an older sister who is a major addict and they would do anything they could to prevent her from facing the consequences of her actions. His dad always seemed super nice and very similar to my husband. After we broke up, I found a charge for indecent exposure against him. I'm like, wow, okay, so y'all just act like everyone and everything is perfect no matter what y'all do. The world is unfair and most think that they can make it fair. The world is run by evil people and they're in power over most people. They decide over lives like a game or like they're God. Humans are inherently evil whether they choose to is up to them, but they can be corrupted by power and money or just their past trauma have ruined the good in them. People hate the truth no matter how much they say they want it. To ruin their illusion would destroy them. They would rather live the lie because it's better than the reality they live in. Doctors don't cure anything because they would make no money if they did, even though they're bombarded with so many people needing their help. They choose to prolong their condition to line their pockets and pay their debts. And #X200B. Politicians don't care about us, and the fact people vote for them, follow them, believe they care about concerns is idiotic. If you decide to become a politician yourself, you either play along and accept the status quo of accepting bribes, lining your pocket and doing nothing to fix issues in people's lives, because if you did, the people paying you would lose money themselves. If you go against that, try to better people's, both parties will team up and stop you because they're all in on the game of lining their pockets. And #X200B. Politics is the new religion to divide and control people. So many people are unhappy, but instead of helping and growing as a community, they decide to be just as bad when in power. They become the one they hate just to feel justified. If everyone just leaves other to do what they love, the world would be a better place. Do whatever the fuck you want, just don't want to hurt someone in the process. Be greedy but don't take from others. I want to win awards, but if someone else wins I would be happy for them. They deserve it, but I feel jealous. I don't bring someone down, I just try to be my best. Just love everyone and let everyone love you. As simple as that, but there is just so much division and hatred, it just hurts, and people think it is normal as you grow up. I don't want to be shitty grown up. The world can be so beautiful, but hatred just makes it so dirty. How few the amount of companies that control the entire world is. It sounds like something out of a conspiracy or Mr. Robot or something, but when an everyday person looks at it, you have to kind of appreciatively step back and say, well, shit. Because we mostly ignore those companies and only say X, Y, Z is bad, but they still have parent companies that own the whole damn alphabet, even if you swap to A, B, C.